Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Syed Kashif Ali from Chemistry Department. Today I am going to present my second part of my presentation, which was about green chemistry. Today the topic is how to reduce the industrial water waste and how to treat industrially polluted water. So let's start with the industrial wastewater. Industrial wastewater, it is in common terms when the water becomes contaminated with other chemicals that industries use. For example, paint industries, the leather industries, they use it for the cleaning purposes. When the chemicals contaminates the water becomes polluted with those chemicals. The water becomes polluted and becomes harmful for the environment. So when the industries have to expel it out, it poses serious health issues for the human beings also, and also for the environment. So this sort of water is called the industrial wastewater. Typically, during the use of water in an industrial manufacturing process or the cleaning activities that take place along with that process, many industries make water polluted, which in turn pollutes the environment. So this was a little information about the industrial wastewater. So moving towards next slide. What is the objective of treatment of water? This is simple. The principal objective of the industrial wastewater treatment is it is to generally allow the industries to clean the water and then expel it out so that it does not poses the health issues for the human beings and for the environment. It is generally to allow the industrial effluents to be disposed of without the danger to human health or unacceptable damage to the natural environment. To manage water discharge from homes, sewage disposal is also a part of it, and industries to reduce the threat of water pollution. So this was the main objective of the treatment of water. So moving towards the next slide to know how to reduce the waste of water. First of all, there are certain steps to reduce the waste of water. First step is to identify the problematic runoff and connection issues. Industries should check any point of the process where groundwater, rainwater, or fractured pipes might be leaking fresh water. What is meant by there are certain holes in the pipes which carry the water. There is a possibility that it may contain some holes from which water can leak out of it, so that the water will be wasted or will be of no use, or untreated process waste into your effluent streams. So it will be wasted and it will be of no use. There are many uncertain points from where the water can leak. These are the sites from where the water will be wasted. So we have to be vigilant. We have to be careful about those points so that the water cannot be wasted from these type of points. So moving towards the next slide and to know what is the second step, how to reduce the water wastage. Install water saving devices. Okay, we should install the water saving devices like the meters to reduce the waste of water. Our first struggle should be to save the water, to make it useful for our generation, for the sake of use of industries. They have to use it, they have to make the products of it, so that the industries are working for the human being to fulfill the needs of the human. So we have to take steps so that it should be feasible for the human beings for the future. So we should install the water saving devices. We should use the uh, water used in one production process into another process. This is also a new technique in the modern era. We should use the water used in one production process into it should be made such that it should be used in the second process. Metering devices. What are metering devices? They can help to reduce the wastewater volume by ensuring the levels are continually audited. So that they are continually checked whether they are used properly or not. These devices can be used as automatic shut-off mechanisms to ensure the prevention of water wastage. The main principle is that the water should not be wasted. The green chemistry, my topic was to cover the green chemistry and aspects of it. So the green chemistry just focuses on how can a process should be designed to reduce its hazardous effects. So the reduction of the wastage of the water should be maintained in a simple way so that the water should not be wasted. So this was the main point of the green chemistry. The second point was to install water saving devices. So moving towards the next slide, reuse and recycle water. Okay. Adopting this principle will greatly reduce the waste of water in industry. It is a little expensive, but the long-term savings are often worth the cost. Firstly, we will see that water will be not wasted. We waste a lot of water in our modern era. We do not care about it. So this is the main principle: reuse and recycle the water. This has to be adopted due to the rapid growth of industries. This this thing is this is the reality of the modern era. There are many industries which are opening due to the fulfilling of the human needs in the country due to the needs of the human beings. A thorough analysis can help determine which recycling measures will pay off for you. Many analysts are sitting for this purpose so that they get opportunity to analyze this in which process will be feasible to reuse and recycle the water. So moving towards the next slide, biological wastewater treatment. If the industry produces the organic wastes, then the biological treatment can be feasible. This process is efficient and economical. This process breaks down and removes the organic contaminants from wastes, such as those produced in the food and beverage, chemical manufacturing, oil and gas, and municipal industries. This process, it produces the biogas, which can be used as a energy source. So this process is very feasible. So moving towards the next slide, the second part of this presentation is that how to treat the industrially polluted water. Mainly there are four processes in for which we can treat the industrially polluted water. First one is preliminary treatment, primary treatment, secondary treatment, tertiary treatment, and disposal. So we should first discuss the preliminary treatment, and let's see what it says in the next slide. Preliminary treatment, the objective of this process is to protect the operation of the plant. The plant which is carrying all the production process in the industry, this treatment protects the operation of the plant. This ensures the safety of the plant which is operating. This is achieved by removing the clogs. There are certain substances which clogs the pipes of the industries. So it reduces the efficiency of the plants. The preliminary treatment is done to increase the efficiency. This treatment removes inorganic solids, removes excessive greases. This was the main point of the preliminary treatment. So there are certain processes of it. We will see it in the next slide. It has four stages. Screening. It consists of bars usually spaced 3/4 inches to 6 inches. It provides the opening of 1 to 2 inches so that if there are some substances which can clog the operation plant, it restricts to it. They should be cleaned manually or automatically. There is usually a bar 1 to 2 inches there is spacing, and they are presented at an angle of 45 to 90 degree vertically or horizontally. The main point of it is that they should be cleaned manually or automatically, if possible, it is your choice. So screening is the first part. Grit chamber wastewater. It contains a large amount of inorganic solids such as sand, cinders, and gravel, which are collectively called grit. Grit chambers, they are usually located ahead of pumps or comminuting devices. The detention period is usually between the 20 seconds to 1.0 minute. So grit chamber, it contains a large amount of inorganic solid so that it removes the inorganic solid. The main point is that it detoxifies the plant from these sort of inorganic solid, which can clog the operation plant. So moving towards the next slide and knowing what is the third process, skimming tanks. Okay, the skimming tanks, they are arranged so that floating matter like oil, fat, grease, etc. rise and remain on the surface of the wastewater. This is the most feasible part of the preliminary treatment. The floating matter like oil, grease, they remain on the surface of the water so that they can be removed from the operation plant. It is long trough shaped structure for which detention of 3 minutes is enough. So this was the preliminary treatment. The next slide will show, we will see it in the next slide, moving towards it. Primary treatment. Here comes the second part of it. The objective of the primary treatment, it is the removal of settleable organic and inorganic solids. We have to treat this sort of waste, otherwise it will ruin the plant. 25 to 50% of the incoming biochemical oxygen demand, 50 to 70% of the total suspended solid, they are treated by the primary treatment. It is a sufficient treatment if the wastewater is used to irrigate crops that are not to be, if the humans don't need it, if there are certain crops which are to be presented before the animals. So if they are not to be consumed by animals, this process is totally fine. This treatment is totally feasible. Or to irrigate orchards, vineyards, and sub-processed food. Primary sedimentation tanks or clarifiers may be round or rectangular basins, typically 3 to 5 meter deep, with hydraulic retention time between 2 or 3 hours. This was the primary treatment. So moving towards the next slide, seeing what it says. Secondary treatment. The objective of secondary treatment, it is the further treatment of the effluent from the primary treatment to remove the residual organics and suspended solids. Secondary treatment follows the primary treatment, and it involves the removal of biodegradable, dissolved and colloidal organic matter using aerobic biological treatment process. There are certain processes in the modern era from which the secondary treatment can be carried out. So main point is that the effluents which are remaining in the primary treatment, it is treated in the secondary treatment. So moving towards the next slide, seeing what it says, moving towards it. High rate biological processes are characterized by relatively small reactor volumes and high concentration of microorganisms compared with the low rate processes. Common high rate processes include, it is a part of secondary treatment, it includes tricking filters or biofilters, rotating biological contracted, which is also known as RBC. These were some processes from which the secondary treatment can be carried out. So moving towards the next slide, seeing what it says. Tertiary treatment. This treatment is done when specific wastewater constituents which cannot be removed by secondary treatment must be removed. This technique is optional because the secondary treatment, it removes the effluents from 99%. So if there is something remaining, we can use this treatment, this sort of treatment. There is we can use it. Individual treatment processes are necessary to remove nitrogen, phosphorus, additional suspended solids, refractory organics, heavy metals, and dissolved solids. Tertiary treatment processes are dechlorination, disinfection, reverse osmosis, and ion exchange. So these were some treatment processes of tertiary treatment. So moving towards the next slide, seeing what it says. Sewage disposal. The disposal of wastewater and stormwater, they should be preferably be considered to reuse. We have to think first about reusing it. If there is no means of reusing it or recycling it, so we can then dispose of it. Okay, so first priority should be to use it for recycling. If there is no option left, it can be disposed of. There are three methods by which the final disposal of wastewater can be carried out. First one is surface disposal, subsurface disposal, disposal by dilution or water. First, I will try to explain just a bit by verbally what is surface disposal. Generally, this is disposal by irrigation. This involves the spreading. This involves spreading the wastewater over the surface of the ground, generally by irrigation ditches. This method is largely restricted to small volumes of wastewater from a relatively small population where land area is available and nuisance problems will not be created. It has its best use in arid or semi-arid areas. So this was the surface disposal. The second one is subsurface disposal. What is By this method, wastewater is introduced into the ground below its surface through pits or tile fields. It is commonly used for disposal of settled wastewater from residences or institutions where there is only a limited volume of wastewater. Little application for large-scale use in municipalities. This was just a verbally description of sewage disposal. The last is the disposal by dilution or water. River, lake, ocean are included in this. Disposal by dilution, it is the simplest of the simple method of discharging wastewater into a surface water such as a river, lake, ocean, estuaries, or wetlands. The degree of pollution depends on the dilution, volume, and composition of the wastewater as compared to the volume. However, in spite of the continued aerobic status of the receiving water, microbial pollution remains a health menace and floating solids in the wastewater. The presence of excessive amounts of nutrients can stimulate plant and algae growth in the receiving waters. This is of special concern in inland enclosed waters such as lake and ponds. So my presentation was up to this point. I tried my best to explain all the treatments, how it can be carried out. So this ends the presentation here. So thanking you, the references are also included in the last portion of the presentation. So I am ending this presentation right now. Thank you and Allah Hafiz.